Imagine a world shattered overnight. A world where roaring waters swallowed entire continents, where cities of stone were reduced to memories, and where only fragments of ancient monuments remain, standing like silent witnesses to a cataclysm humanity has almost forgotten. But here is the question. Could the pyramids, those eternal guardians of the desert, be more than just tombs or temples? Could they be the last surviving markers of a world lost to a great flood? For centuries, cultures across the globe, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, have carried legends of a deluge so immense it reshaped human history. The Bible calls it the Flood of Noah. The Sumerians wrote of Utnapishtim. In India, it was Manhu who survived upon the waters. And in every version, the flood is not merely a disaster, it is a reset button for civilization. Now look at the pyramids. From Giza to Teotihuacan, from Nubia to China, these colossal structures rise with impossible precision, defying time itself. Archaeologists argue over their purpose, historians question their origin, and yet they endure, like messages carved in stone meant for the survivors of a broken age. What if these structures were not only monuments, but also memorials of survival? What if the pyramids are the physical proof that humanity has already faced the end once before and found a way to continue? In this journey, we will step back into the shadow of forgotten worlds. We will examine myths and archaeology, weigh science against legend, and ask, were the pyramids built to honor gods or to preserve knowledge from a drowned civilization? Because if the flood truly happened, and if the pyramids are its survivors, then perhaps the history of humanity is far older, far stranger, and far more mysterious than we dare to believe.
When we hear the word flood, the image that often comes to mind is a biblical story, a religious parable, or a myth told around ancient fires. But in recent decades, scientists, archaeologists, and geologists have uncovered evidence suggesting that these flood myths may be rooted in real, catastrophic events that reshaped both the Earth and the trajectory of human evolution. Let us begin at the end of the Ice Age, around 12,000 years ago. Vast ice sheets covered much of North America, Europe, and Asia. These glaciers locked away unimaginable amounts of water, lowering sea levels and exposing entire land bridges that are now submerged. Human groups, prehistoric hunters and gatherers, migrated across these expanses, building the foundations of what we call civilization. Then, something happened. At the close of the Ice Age, global temperatures rose dramatically. The ice began to melt and the oceans swelled. Studies show that sea levels rose as much as 120 meters, drowning coastlines, islands, and low-lying civilizations. Imagine standing on a cliff and watching your village disappear beneath waves that never recede. This was not a flood that lasted days or weeks, it was a transformation of the world itself. In archaeology, there is evidence to suggest such floods may have directly impacted humanity's memory. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, dated to around 9600 BCE, appear to have been constructed just as the Ice Age ended, at the very dawn of settled human life. Some researchers speculate that its enigmatic carvings may even depict astronomical events connected to great cataclysms. Then there are the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza, standing since around 2500 BCE, is the most famous, but it is not alone. Step pyramids in Mesopotamia, Mesoamerican pyramids in Teotihuacan, pyramidal mounds in China, all emerge from cultures separated by oceans and millennia, yet all share strikingly similar designs. Why? Mainstream archaeology tells us pyramids were tombs, ceremonial centers, or expressions of centralized power. But an alternative school of thought suggests something more profound. that pyramids encode ancient knowledge, preserved in monumental stone to withstand disasters that wiped away earlier civilizations. Could they be survivors, not only physically enduring floods and time, but also surviving as carriers of memory, remnants of a lost global tradition? Even geological records whisper the same story. Sediment layers show sudden deposits of silt and sand where no rivers flow, suggesting flash floods or massive tidal waves. In North America, the scablands of Washington bear scars of megafloods unleashed when ice dams burst. In the Black Sea region, marine archaeologists have discovered submerged coastlines, possibly evidence of a catastrophic flood that may have inspired legends like the story of Noah. And yet there is more. Ancient myths often describe not only water but fire and darkness, the heavens split, stars falling, the earth trembling. Some researchers connect these myths to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, the idea that fragments of a comet struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, triggering rapid climate change, mass extinctions, and massive floods. If true, this event would have been burned into the memory of prehistoric humans and encoded into their myths for millennia. This brings us back to archaeology's most provocative question. Did humanity rise from nothing only 6,000 years ago, as textbooks suggest, or are we the heirs of a much older forgotten civilization that perished in global cataclysm? Consider the following. Plato's Atlantis, a tale of an advanced civilization swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. The Epic of Gilgamesh, a flood so immense that even the gods trembled. The Mayan Popol Vuh, a destruction of earlier humans by water. Each story is unique, yet each converges on the same theme. The flood was real, devastating, and transformative. But here lies the mystery. If great floods did wipe away early human societies, how did some knowledge survive? Who were the carriers of this wisdom? And why, across continents, do the pyramids seem to stand as the most enduring testimony? The historical and scientific context offers us a strange duality. On one hand, the evidence for natural floods and ice age cataclysms is overwhelming. On the other, archaeology resists the idea of advanced civilizations before Mesopotamia and Egypt. Between these poles stands the pyramid, an enigma too precise, too massive, and too universal to dismiss as coincidence. The question we must ask is not just if the flood happened, it clearly did, but rather, what did it destroy? And what traces of that world survive in the monuments we see today?
Picture this. The Ice Age is ending. Vast sheets of ice that had for millennia pressed down upon the land are collapsing, cracking, and melting into torrents of rushing water. Rivers swell into inland seas, coastlines vanish. Entire landscapes are erased in what seems like the blink of an eye. For the prehistoric humans who lived through this, it was nothing short of the end of the world. Imagine a small tribe on the banks of a fertile plain. They have hunted mammoths, fished in rivers, and planted their first crops on the rich soil left by receding glaciers. But one night, the ground shakes, the air itself seems to roar, and on the horizon, a wall of water rises higher than the tallest tree. There's no escape. Villages are swallowed, fires are drowned, children cling to their parents as the world collapses. The survivors are few, scattered, traumatized, and desperate to preserve the memory of what has been lost. This image of survival against overwhelming catastrophe is at the heart of the world's flood myths. They are not stories of mere rain. They are recollections of trauma, of humanity looking back upon an ancient cataclysm and whispering to their children, "This must never be forgotten." But how do you preserve memory across centuries? Spoken words vanish. Myths twist with each retelling. The only true survivor is stone, and this is where the pyramids enter our story. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with extraordinary precision to the cardinal directions. Its proportions encode mathematical constants. Its size defies imagination.
more than 2 million blocks, some weighing over 70 tons, stacked with such accuracy that even today engineers debate how it was accomplished. Was this merely for the burial of a single king, or was it a structure meant to endure time itself, to preserve knowledge through cycles of destruction? Now, consider the pyramid not as a tomb, but as a kind of ark, not one of wood floating upon waters, but of stone anchored against the storms of history. An ark not to carry bodies, but to carry memory. Across the world, the same idea repeats. The pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico rise as if mirroring the cosmos. The stepped pyramids of Mesopotamia, the ziggurats, were said to connect heaven and earth. Even the pyramidal mounds of China and the Andes seem to echo a universal design. Could it be that survivors of the flood, or their descendants, sought to recreate the same eternal monument again and again across continents? Some researchers propose a striking theory that pyramids are not simply structures, but blueprints. Encoded in their angles and measurements are fragments of an ancient science, astronomy, geometry, even cosmology passed down by those who endured the cataclysm. If humanity nearly perished once, perhaps these survivors wanted to leave behind a message, a map, a warning, or a key to rebuilding civilization should disaster strike again. Think of it this way. If our world were to collapse tomorrow, what would survive? Our digital archives would fade. Our cities would crumble. Yet the pyramids, stone mountains carved by human hands, would remain for millennia. They already have. And here lies the true enigma. If the flood erased civilizations, why do pyramids appear so suddenly, so fully formed in history? Egypt's first pyramid, the Step Pyramid of Djoser, emerges not as a crude experiment, but as a masterpiece. In Mesoamerica, early pyramids already reflect advanced astronomical alignments. It is as if the knowledge appeared overnight, like a seed carried from an older, forgotten garden. Now, return to our tribe of survivors. Imagine them standing on higher ground, watching the floodwaters recede. They carry little, a few tools, a memory of constellations, a deep fear of the water's return. Perhaps one of them says, "We must build something that endures, something that speaks across time." And they begin with earth mounds, then with stones, until finally they raise pyramids, immovable mountains of human will. What is remarkable is not simply that pyramids exist, but that they embody humanity's deepest instinct to remember, to outlast disaster, to defy the erasure of time. Archaeology may explain pyramids as tombs, temples, or symbols of centralized power, and in part this is true, but beneath these explanations lies another truth, more haunting, more profound. Pyramids are survival itself, frozen in stone. They are the voice of those who endured the flood, speaking to us across 10,000 years. We lived, we learned, remember us. And as we walk among them today beneath the shadow of Giza, Teotihuacan, or the Nubian sands, the question arises, are we hearing that voice? Or have we, in our obsession with modern explanations, forgotten to listen? The flood myths tell us of destruction. The pyramids show us survival. Between them lies a story that may redefine human evolution, archaeology, and our understanding of what it means to endure.
The mystery of the flood and the pyramids is not without controversy. For every hypothesis that ties these monuments to a lost civilization, there are archaeologists and historians who fiercely resist the idea. And so the debate continues between mainstream explanations grounded in evidence and alternative theories that dare to imagine what might lie beyond the visible record. Let us begin with the academic consensus. The pyramids of Egypt, scholars say, were constructed during the Old Kingdom, around 2600 to 2500 BCE. They were built as tombs for pharaohs, grand monuments reflecting the centralized power of kingship and the religious belief in an afterlife. Texts like the Pyramid Text describe spells and rituals meant to guide the deceased ruler into eternity. From this perspective, The pyramids are less about survival of civilization and more about the immortality of rulers. And yet, problems arise. Why did pyramid building appear so suddenly, with astonishing precision, and then decline? Later pyramids, such as those of the Middle Kingdom, are far less durable, constructed of mud brick rather than massive limestone. If pyramid building was a gradual skill perfected over centuries, why does it seem to start at its peak and then fade? This is where alternative perspectives emerge. Some researchers, such as Graham Hancock, suggest that the pyramids are far older than conventional archaeology allows. They argue that geological evidence, like weathering patterns on the Sphinx, suggests construction during the end of the Ice Age, when heavy rains last drenched the Sahara. If true, the pyramids might indeed be the legacy of flood survivors, preserved and repurposed by later Egyptians. Mainstream Egyptologists strongly reject this. They point to inscriptions, tombs, and records that tie the pyramids directly to pharaohs like Khufu. They argue that extraordinary structures need not imply lost civilizations, only immense organization, resources, and labor. For them, the pyramids are the culmination of Egyptian society's growth, not remnants of a forgotten world. But the debate deepens when we step beyond Egypt. In Mesoamerica, the pyramids of Teotihuacan and the Maya bear striking similarities in form, though their functions differed. These were temples, not tombs, often aligned to celestial events. The Pyramid of the Sun, for example, is oriented to the setting sun on specific dates. Was this similarity in design mere coincidence, or the echo of a universal memory? Archaeologists argue independently developed solutions to shared human needs, monuments to gods, rulers, and cosmic order. Yet others note how flood myths are also universal, and how the pyramid appears in cultures separated by oceans. Is this simply convergent evolution of architecture, or evidence of shared origins before a great dispersal? Then there is the question of knowledge encoded within these structures. The Great Pyramid's proportions have been argued to reflect the ratio of Earth's dimensions, the value of pi, even astronomical cycles. Critics dismiss such claims as numerology, seeing patterns where none were intended. But the possibility lingers. Could survivors of a cataclysm have embedded their understanding of the cosmos into indestructible stone, ensuring it would outlast disaster? The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis adds fuel to the fire. If fragments of a comet struck Earth around 12,800 years ago, triggering mass floods and extinctions, then survivors of such an event may indeed have sought to preserve memory through myths, oral traditions, and monuments. But archaeology demands caution. Evidence for advanced civilizations before Mesopotamia remains elusive. Without artifacts, cities, tools, records, how can we accept the notion of a lost world? Here lies the paradox. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The flood, if real, would have destroyed much, burying coastlines beneath oceans. How many ancient settlements now lie hundreds of feet underwater? In the Gulf of Cambay, off the coast of India, sonar scans reveal submerged structures that some claim are ancient cities, drowned thousands of years ago. Critics call these natural formations. The debate remains unresolved. And so, the arguments circle. Mainstream view: the pyramids are cultural achievements, constructed within recorded history tied to kings and rituals. Alternative view: the pyramids are survivors of an older knowledge system, remnants of a civilization erased by flood. Scientific evidence: geological layers confirm great floods at the end of the Ice Age, but archaeology demands hard proof of advanced societies. What remains undeniable is the power of myth. From Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh to Native American flood stories, humanity has preserved one collective memory. A flood came, it destroyed everything, and only fragments of the old world survived. Myths are not history, but neither are they pure invention. They're the smoke of an ancient fire, faint, distorted, but impossible to ignore. The unanswered questions are many. If the flood destroyed civilizations, why do pyramids appear suddenly, fully formed in history? If they were tombs, why encode mathematics and astronomy into their design? If myths are fiction, why do cultures across the world remember the same disaster? We may never know the full truth, but perhaps that is the point. The flood and the pyramids are not just historical puzzles. They are mirrors of our own curiosity. They remind us that human evolution is not a simple line from primitive to advanced, but a tapestry woven with gaps, erasures, and forgotten threats. Standing before the pyramids, we are forced to ask, are we truly the first advanced civilization on this planet? Or are we, like the pharaohs, inheritors of something older, something lost to the waters of time?
What does all of this mean for us today? Why should the flood myths and the enigma of the pyramids matter to a modern world of satellites, skyscrapers, and artificial intelligence? The answer lies not only in archaeology, but in the reflection of our own human story. The flood is more than a tale of disaster. It is a reminder of fragility, that civilizations, no matter how mighty, can be swept away overnight. The pyramids are more than monuments. They are symbols of resilience, of survival, and of the will to leave something behind that endures beyond chaos. Think about it. Prehistoric humans faced challenges we can hardly imagine. Abrupt climate shifts, the extinction of the animals they depended on, rising seas that drowned their homes. Yet they adapted, they migrated, they reinvented themselves, they remembered. The myths they carried were not idle stories. They were survival manuals written in metaphor. Beware of the flood. Do not forget what can happen. Always prepare. And the pyramids, whether in Giza, Teotihuacan, or Nubia, stand as a kind of psychological anchor. They tell us, even in a world of uncertainty, human beings can create something eternal. When all else collapses, when empires vanish, stone remains. They remind us that survival is not only about living through disaster, it is about carrying wisdom forward, about ensuring that memory itself cannot be destroyed. In our own age, are we not facing floods of a different kind? Rising seas from climate change, fires raging across continents, extinctions of species at a pace unseen since the Ice Age. Technology accelerates, but so too does fragility. The flood, once a myth of the past, becomes a mirror for our present. And we, like our ancestors, must ask, what will survive of us when the waters rise again? There is also a deeper reflection here, one that touches on human evolution. If the flood and the pyramids teach us anything, it is that humanity is not defined by how many times we fall, but by how many times we rebuild. We are creatures of resilience. The Neanderthals vanished, but Homo sapiens adapted. The Ice Age ended, yet humans flourished. Lost civilizations were drowned, yet their memory lives on in stone and story. The pyramids teach us a lesson about time. They remind us that we are not the center of history, but only one chapter in a vast epic stretching back millions of years. Civilizations rise and fall. What endures is not wealth or power, but the wisdom we choose to encode for the future. So what should we encode today? If we imagine ourselves as flood survivors, what knowledge would we want to preserve? Mathematics, science, art, philosophy? Lessons of survival, compassion, and humility? Would we build our own pyramids, not of stone, but of ideas, etched into digital archives, or perhaps into structures that can endure the erosion of time? And perhaps this is the most profound reflection. The pyramids and flood myths are not simply about the past. They are a challenge to us, here and now. They ask, what will you leave behind? When the waters of history wash away your cities, what message will endure to tell future survivors who you were and what you valued? Standing beneath the pyramids, you feel the immensity of this question. They do not speak only of kings or gods. They speak of humanity itself, its fragility, its strength, its eternal desire to endure. In their silent stones, we find both a warning and an invitation. Learn from the past, prepare for the future, and understand that survival is never just about bodies. It is about memory, meaning, and spirit. So when we contemplate the flood in the pyramids, we are really contemplating ourselves, our fears, our resilience, our longing to be remembered. They are not relics of a lost world. They are blueprints for how to survive in any age. And perhaps that is the real secret. The pyramids are not only survivors of a lost world, They are guides for ours. The story of the flood and the pyramids is not a simple one. It weaves together geology, archaeology, myth, and memory. It asks us to confront not only what we know, but what we have forgotten. The flood is real, whether as the gradual rise of seas at the end of the Ice Age or as sudden cataclysms unleashed by collapsing ice sheets and cosmic impacts. The pyramids are real, colossal, enduring, precise beyond imagination. And the connection between them lies not only in physical evidence, but in something deeper, the human need to remember, to endure, to survive. We began with a question. Could the pyramids be survivors of a lost world? The truth may never be fully known. Perhaps they are tombs, as the textbooks say. Perhaps they are temples aligned with the heavens. Or perhaps, in some way beyond our full understanding, they are both, and more. Monuments built by those who survived the flood meant not only for their gods or kings, but for us. Standing before the Great Pyramid, you are struck by its silence. No inscriptions cover its walls. Unlike temples adorned with hieroglyphs, the Great Pyramid speaks only through its form, its mathematics, its endurance. Some call this silence proof of a missing history. Others see it as the ultimate statement, a monument so vast it needs no words. Across the ocean in Mexico, the pyramids of Teotihuacan rise with similar majesty. Their builders left no written explanation either. To this day, we call the city the place where the gods were created. Perhaps that is fitting, for pyramids are not simply structures. They are bridges between worlds, the mortal and the eternal, the remembered and the forgotten. And so we are left with mysteries. Why do so many cultures remember a flood? Why do so many civilizations build pyramids? Why do myths and monuments converge on the same message that humanity has endured catastrophe and that survival demands both strength and memory? The pyramids endure because they are more than stone. They are mirrors of our own fear of forgetting. They are lighthouses built by survivors, shining across the sea of time. They remind us that civilizations fall, but human resilience rises again and again. What does this mean for us? It means that we, too, are survivors of floods, whether of water, of fire, or of time. We inherit not only DNA from prehistoric humans, Neanderthals, and Ice Age tribes, but also the memory of catastrophe encoded in story and stone. And just as they built pyramids to speak across the ages, we must ask, what will we leave behind? Perhaps the true lesson of the pyramids is humility. We are not the first to face disaster, nor will we be the last. Civilizations greater than ours may have been lost beneath the waves, remembered only in myth. And if we are not careful, our own may one day join them. But the pyramids also whisper hope. They tell us that survival is possible, that knowledge can endure, that even when waters rise, the human spirit finds ways to build, to remember, to leave a message for those who come after. So we end with a question, not to be answered by archaeologists or historians, but by you. What story will our civilization leave for the survivors of tomorrow? Will they find ruins of steel and glass? Or will they find messages of wisdom meant to guide them through their own floods? Perhaps one day, far in the future, another species or our distant descendants will look back at our monuments and myths and ask the same question we ask of the pyramids today. Who built these and why? Do we really know everything about our ancestors? Or have we only just begun to remember the lost world from which we came? If these mysteries stir something within you, join us on this journey. Like, subscribe, and continue with us as we uncover the forgotten chapters of human history, because the story of the flood and the pyramids may not be the end, but only the beginning.